SCUM, Society for Cutting Up Men, Manifesto by Valerie Solanas. Life in this society being, at best, an utter bore and no aspect of society being at all relevant to women, there remains to civic-minded, responsible, thrill-seeking females only to overthrow the government, eliminate the money system, institute complete automation and destroy the male sex. It is now technically possible to reproduce without the aid of males, or, for that matter, females, and to produce only females. We must begin immediately to do so. The male is a biological accident, the Y, male, gene is an incomplete X, female, gene, that is, has an incomplete set of chromosomes. In other words, the male is an incomplete female, a walking abortion, aborted as the gene stage. To be male is to be deficient, emotionally limited. Maleness is a deficiency disease and males are emotional cripples. The male is completely egocentric, trapped inside himself, incapable of empathizing or identifying with others, of love, friendship, affection or tenderness. He is a completely isolated unit, incapable of rapport with anyone. His responses are entirely visceral, not cerebral. His intelligence is a mere tool in the service of his drives and needs. He is incapable of mental passion, mental interaction. He can't relate to anything other than his own physical sensations. He is a half-dead, unresponsive lump, incapable of giving or receiving pleasure or happiness. Consequently, he is at best an utter bore, an inoffensive blob, since only those capable of absorption in others can be charming. He is trapped in a twilight zone halfway between humans and apes, and is far worse off than the apes because, unlike the apes, he is capable of a large array of negative feelings: hate, jealousy, contempt, disgust, guilt, shame, doubt, and moreover he is aware of what he is or isn't. Although completely physical, the male is unfit even for stud service. Even assuming mechanical proficiency, which few men have, he is, first of all, incapable of zestfully, lustfully, tearing off a piece, but is instead eaten up with guilt, shame, fear and insecurity, feelings rooted in male nature, which the most enlightened training can only minimize. Second, the physical feeling he attains is next to nothing, and, third, he is not empathizing with his partner, but is obsessed with how he's doing, turning in an A performance, doing a good plumbing job. To call a man an animal is to flatter him. He's a machine, a walking dildo. It's often said that men use women. Use them for what? Surely not pleasure. Eaten up with guilt, shame, fears and insecurities and obtaining, if he's lucky, a barely perceptible physical feeling, the male is, nonetheless, obsessed with screwing. He'll swim a river of snot, wade nostril deep through a mile of vomit, if he thinks there'll be a friendly pussy awaiting him. He'll screw a woman he despises, any snaggletooth tag, and, furthermore, pay for the opportunity. Why? Relieving physical tension isn't the answer, as masturbation suffices for that. It's not ego satisfaction, that doesn't explain screwing corpses and babies. Completely egocentric, unable to relate, empathize or identify, and filled with the vast, pervasive, diffuse sexuality, the male is psychically passive. He hates his passivity, so he projects it onto women, defines the male as active, then sets out to prove that he is, prove he's a man. His main means of attempting to prove it is screwing, big man with a big dick tearing off a big piece. Since he's attempting to prove an error, he must prove it again and again. Screwing, then, is a desperate, compulsive attempt to prove he's not passive, not a woman, but he is passive and does want to be a woman. Being an incomplete female, the male spends his life attempting to complete himself, to become female. He attempts to do this by constantly seeking out, fraternizing with and trying to live through and fuse with the female, and by claiming as his own all-female characteristics emotional strength and independence, forcefulness, dynamism, decisiveness, coolness, objectivity, assertiveness, courage, integrity, vitality, intensity, depth of character, grooviness, etc. and projecting onto women all male traits: vanity, frivolity, triviality, weakness, etc. It should be said, though, that the male has one glaring area of superiority over the female: public relations. He has done a brilliant job of convincing millions of women that men are women and women are men. The male claim that females find fulfillment through motherhood and sexuality reflects what males think they'd find fulfilling if they were female. Women, in other words, don't have penis envy, men have pussy envy. When the male accepts his passivity, defines himself as a woman, males as well as females think men are women and women are men, and becomes a transvestite. He loses his desire to screw, or to do anything else, for that matter. He fulfills himself as a drag queen, and gets his cock chopped off. He achieves a continuous diffuse sexual feeling from being a woman. Screwing is, for a man, a defense against his desire to be female. Sex is itself a sublimation. The male, because of his obsession to compensate for not being female combined with his inability to relate and to feel compassion, has made of the world a shitpile. He is responsible for war. The male's normal method of compensation for not being female, namely, getting his big gun off, is grossly inadequate, as he can get it off only a very limited number of times, so he gets it off on a really massive scale, and proves to the entire world that he's a man. Since he has no compassion or ability to empathize or identify, proving his manhood is worth an endless number of lives, including his own life being worthless, he would rather go out in a blaze of glory than plod grimly on for 50 more years. Niceness, politeness and dignity, every man, deep down, knows he's a worthless piece of shit. Overwhelmed by a sense of animalism and deeply ashamed of it, wanting, not to express himself, but to hide from others his total physicality, total egocentricity, the hate and contempt he feels for other men, and to hide from himself the hate and contempt he suspects other men feel for him, having a crudely constructed nervous system that is easily upset by the least display of emotion or feeling, the male tries to enforce a social code that ensures a perfect blandness, unsullied by the slightest trace of feeling or upsetting opinion. He uses terms like copulate, sexual congress, have relations with. To men, sexual relations is a redundancy, overlaid with stilted manners, the suit on the chimp. Money, marriage and prostitution, work and prevention of an automated society. There is no human reason for money or for anyone to work more than 2 or 3 hours a week at the very most. All non-creative jobs, practically all jobs now being done, could have been automated long ago, and in a moneyless society everyone can have as much of the best of everything as she wants. But there are non-human, male reasons for maintaining the money work system. 1. Pussy. Despising his highly inadequate self, overcome with intense anxiety and a deep, profound loneliness went by his empty self, desperate to attach himself to any female in dim hopes of completing himself, in the mystical belief that by touching gold he'll turn to gold, the male craves the continuous companionship of women. The company of the lowest female is preferable to his own or that of other men, who serve only to remind him of his repulsiveness. But females, unless very young or very sick, must be coerced or bribed into male company. 2. Supply the non-relating male with the delusion of usefulness, and enable him to try to justify his existence by digging holes and filling them up. Leisure time horrifies the male, who will have nothing to do but contemplate his grotesque self. Unable to relate or to love, the male must work. Females crave absorbing, emotionally satisfying, meaningful activity, but lacking the opportunity or ability for this, they prefer to idle and waste away their time in ways of their own choosing: sleeping, shopping, bowling, shooting pool, playing cards and other games, reading, walking around, daydreaming, eating, playing with themselves, popping pills, going to the movies, getting analyzed, traveling, raising dogs and cats, lolling on the beach, swimming, watching TV, listening to music, decorating their houses, gardening, sewing, nightclubbing, dancing, visiting, improving their minds, taking courses, and absorbing culture, lectures, plays, concerts, arty movies. Therefore, many females would, even assuming complete economic equality between the sexes, prefer living with males or peddling their asses on the street, thus having most of their time for themselves, to spending many hours of their days doing boring, stultifying, non-creative work for somebody else, functioning as less than animals, as machines, or, at best if able to get a good job managing the shit pile. What will liberate women, therefore, from male control is the total elimination of the money work system, not the attainment of economic equality with men within it. 3. Power and control. Unmasterful in his personal relations with women, the male attains to general masterfulness by the manipulation of money and of everything and everybody controlled by money, in other words, of everything and everybody. 4. Love substitute. Unable to give love or affection, the male gives money. It makes him feel motherly. The mother gives milk, he gives bread. He is the breadwinner. 5. Provides the male with a goal. Incapable of enjoying the moment, the male needs something to look forward to, and money provides him with an eternal, never-ending goal. Just think what you could do with $80 trillion invested. And in 3 years' time you'd have $300 trillion. 6. Provides the basis for the male's major opportunity to control and manipulate fatherhood. Fatherhood and mental illness, fear, cowardice, timidity, humility, insecurity, passivity. Mother wants what's best for her kids, daddy only wants what's best for daddy, that is peace and quiet, pandering to his delusion of dignity, respect, a good reflection on himself, status, and the opportunity to control and manipulate, or, if he's an enlightened father, to give guidance, his daughter. In addition, he wants sexually he gives her hand in marriage, the other part is for him. Daddy, unlike mother, can never give in to his kids, as he must, at all costs, preserve his delusion of decisiveness, forcefulness, always rightness and strength. Never getting one's way leads to lack of self-confidence in one's ability to cope with the world and to a passive acceptance of the status quo. Mother loves her kids, although she sometimes gets angry, but anger blows over quickly and even while it exists, doesn't preclude love and basic acceptance. Emotionally diseased daddy doesn't love his kids, he approves of them if they're good, that is, if they're nice, respectful, obedient, subservient to his will, quiet and not given to unseemly displays of temper that would be most upsetting to daddy's easily disturbed male nervous system. In other words, if they're passive vegetables. If they're not good, he doesn't get angry. Not if he's a modern, civilized father, the old-fashioned ranting, raving brute is preferable, as he is so ridiculous he can be easily despised but rather expresses disapproval, a state that, unlike anger, endures and precludes a basic acceptance, leaving the kid with a feeling of worthlessness and a lifelong obsession with being approved of. The result is fear of independent thought, as this leads to unconventional, disapproved of opinions and way of life. For the kid to want daddy's approval, it must respect daddy, and, being garbage, daddy can make sure that he is respected only by remaining aloof, by distantness, by acting on the precept familiarity breeds contempt, which is, of course, true, if one is contemptible. By being distant and aloof, he is able to remain unknown, mysterious, and, thereby, to inspire fear, respect. Disapproval of emotional scenes leads to fear of strong emotion, fear of one's own anger and hatred, and to a fear of facing reality, as facing it leads at first to anger and hatred. Fear of anger and hatred combined with the lack of self-confidence in one's ability to cope with and change the world, or even to affect in the slightest way one's own destiny, leads to a mindless belief that the world and most people in it are nice and that the most banal, trivial amusements are great fun and deeply pleasurable. The effect of fatherhood on males, specifically, is to make them men, that is, highly defensive of all impulses to passivity, faggotry, and of desires to be female. Every boy wants to imitate his mother, be her, fuse with her, but daddy forbids this. He is the mother, he gets to fuse with her. So he tells the boy, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, to not be a sissy, to act like a man. The boy, scared shitless of and respecting his father, complies, and becomes just like daddy, that model of manhood, the all-American ideal, the well-behaved heterosexual dullard. The effect